It was a rainy Thursday afternoon. The library was almost empty. Only the sound of soft rain tapping on the windows could be heard. Bookshelves stood quietly, holding stories no one had touched that day. Mrs. Knorr, the librarian, sat behind the main desk. She was a quiet, kind woman in her 50s. She loved books more than anything. She believed every book held a secret. But today, she was about to discover a different kind of secret, one that didn't come from a book. As she stood to close the windows, something caught her eye in the children's reading corner. A small doll sat on the red cushion. It had curly, brown hair, a pink dress, and a little scarf tied around its neck. It looked old, but well-loved. One eye was slightly loose, and its smile was stitched with black thread. Mrs. Knorr walked over and picked it up gently. "Someone forgot their doll," she whispered. She looked around. The library had closed early due to the storm. Only 2 children had come in that morning, and they had already left hours ago. Mrs. Knorr placed the doll on the lost and found shelf, but as she set it down, she felt something hard inside. She gently squeezed the doll's body again. Yes, something was hidden inside it. Carefully, she turned the doll around and opened the back seam. It was stitched, but not tightly. Someone had opened it before and closed it again. Inside, folded very small, was a piece of paper. Mrs. Knorr slowly unfolded it. Her heart skipped a beat as she read the message. "My name is Alina. I'm 7 years old. If anything happens to me, please keep my doll safe." She read it again, and again. The handwriting was small, uneven, definitely a child's. There were tiny smudges, like maybe the girl had been crying when she wrote it. Mrs. Knorr sat down, holding the note in her hand and the doll in her lap. Something didn't feel right. Why would a little girl write such a message? Had she been in danger? Or was it just a child's imagination? No phone number, no address, just that short message. She looked at the clock. 6:45 p.m. The library would close soon, but Mrs. Knorr couldn't stop thinking about the note. She walked over to the security desk and asked the young guard, "Naveed, do you remember a girl named Alina visiting today?" Naveed thought for a second. No one told me her name. But yes, a little girl did come this morning with an older woman. She had a pink raincoat and 2 braids. They sat in the kids' corner for a while. "Did they leave together?" she asked. Naveed nodded. "Yes, around noon." She was holding that same doll. Mrs. Knorr felt her chest tighten. She walked back to her desk and searched the visitor log. People rarely signed in, but sometimes parents wrote their child's name for the reading program. She scanned the sheet quickly. There it was, written in messy letters. Alina are next to it, in neat handwriting. "Mrs. Ruxana R. Ruxana," she whispered. Maybe her mother. There was no phone number, no email, just a name. She searched the library's database. Mrs. Ruxana had signed up for a library card 8 months ago, but she hadn't used it in weeks. The last borrowed book was returned a month ago. Mrs. Knorr sighed. There was no way to contact her directly. She held the doll tighter. "Why would you leave this here, little one?" That night, Mrs. Knorr took the doll home. She placed it gently on the table beside her bed. She couldn't throw it in the lost and found box. It felt wrong. She stared at the note again. It felt real, not a game, not something random. "If anything happens to me." What did that mean? Did the child run away? Was she hurt? Did she write it just for fun? But the way it was hidden, inside the doll, carefully stitched back? No, it wasn't a joke. The next morning, Mrs. Knorr returned to the library early. The storm had passed, but the clouds still hung low. She went straight to the children's section. Looking for clues, she sat on the same red cushion. Then she noticed something strange. A small crayon mark on the wall like a star, and below it, scratched lightly on the wood with something sharp. "Hide it well." She leaned closer. Hide. What? Was it written by Alina? Or someone else? Suddenly, the front door opened. Mail had arrived. Among the letters and flyers, there was a small envelope, no name, no stamp, just white, sealed with tape. Mrs. Knorr opened it slowly. Inside was a note, typed, not handwritten. "Don't ask about her. Leave the doll where you found it. This is not your story." Her hands trembled. Someone knew she had taken the doll. Someone had watched her. This was no longer about a forgotten toy. This was now a warning. She walked to the window and looked out. A car passed slowly on the road. A man sat in the front seat, wearing a red scarf. She watched as the car stopped at the corner, paused for a moment, then drove away. Mrs. Knorr stood still, her eyes wide. The doll did note, the red scarf. It was all connected. "Who are you, Alina?" she whispered. "And what happened to you?" It was still early when Mrs. Knorr returned to the library. The sky outside was gray, the clouds heavy. Her eyes were tired. She had barely slept. The doll was in her handbag, wrapped gently in a soft cloth. As she unlocked the library door, a strange feeling filled her chest, something between fear and responsibility. She walked straight to her desk and pulled out the note again. "My name is Alina. I'm 7 years old. If anything happens to me, please keep my doll safe." The message wouldn't leave her mind. It was so short, so simple, but full of silent screams. She looked around. The library was quiet. Only a few people were walking outside. She sat down at her computer and typed Alina R into the library's records again. Only one profile showed up. It was created months ago. Borrowed a few children's books, all returned on time. Then silence. She clicked the profile. There was no phone number, no email, just the name of the parent, Ruxana R. She searched Ruxana R. in the city record system. It showed only one person by that name in this area. No current address listed. Last known address, Rose Street, apartment 16. Mrs. Noor stood up, took the doll from her bag and placed it gently in her drawer. She locked it. Then she grabbed her umbrella and told Naveed, the young guard, "I'll be back in an hour. If anyone asks for me, say I'm checking the school database." Naveed nodded. He didn't ask questions. He had worked with her for years. She took a rickshaw to Rose Street. The buildings there were old. Paint peeled from the walls, and the streets were narrow and quiet. She found apartment 16. The door was open slightly, creaking in the wind. She knocked, no answer. She pushed gently. The apartment was empty. Dust covered everything. On the floor lay an old book, a fairy tale. The name Alina was written inside it in blue crayon. So she had lived here. But where was she now? Mrs. Noor walked down and asked the old man, sitting at the corner tea stall, "Do you remember?" "A woman named Ruxana. She lived here with a small girl." The man looked up. "Yes, they used to live in 16. Nice lady. Quiet. The little girl was always reading." "What happened to them?" she asked. The man shrugged. "One night, an ambulance came. After that, the mother was gone. Some say she died. The girl disappeared after that." "Disappeared?" "Yes. Just like that. No one came to take her." The apartment was empty the next day. Mrs. Noor thanked him and left. Her heart heavy. She returned to the library, sat at her desk, and stared at the doll. So Alina's mother was gone, and Alina, no one knew. She took out the doll and looked at it again. Something inside still felt strange. She pressed around the stomach area and suddenly, a soft click. A small tear opened under the dress seam. She reached in. Her fingers touched something flat. It was a folded drawing. She opened it slowly. A child's drawing. A girl with two braids standing next to a tall man. The man had a red scarf. Behind them was a house, with a sad face drawn on it. And in the corner, the same doll was drawn in blue. Below the drawing were 4 words written in uneven letters. "He is not Papa." Mrs. Noor stared at the words. Her fingers trembled slightly. The man in the red scarf? Was he the one pretending to be her father? Was that the man from the car yesterday? She checked the lost and found box, just in case someone came looking for the doll. It was empty. No one had come. No calls, no questions. She sat down again, heart pounding. Who had written the typed note she received yesterday? "Don't ask about her. Leave the doll where you found it. This is not your story." How did they know she had taken the doll home? Were they watching her? She walked to the front window and looked out. The street was calm. Nothing unusual, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The drawing was now placed beside the original note. A message and a cry for help. Both left behind by a girl who seemed to be in danger. She opened the security camera files from the day the doll was left behind. She watched each hour. Most of the videos showed normal activity. People reading, children playing. Then, around 11:30 a.m., she saw a little girl in a pink raincoat, 2 braids, holding a doll. She sat alone in the corner. Her face wasn't clear, but it had to be Alina. Minutes later, she looked toward the desk, then placed the doll on the cushion, stood up, and walked away. No adult followed her. She disappeared behind the bookshelves. The camera didn't catch where she went after. It cut off. The next camera angle showed the doll sitting alone. Mrs. Noor stared at the screen. The girl had left the doll on purpose. She wanted someone to find it. She wanted help. But why didn't she come herself? Why leave a note like that, unless she couldn't come back, or wasn't allowed to? That night, Mrs. Noor couldn't sleep again. Her thoughts kept circling the same questions. Was Alina safe? Who was the man in the red scarf? The next morning, Mrs. Noor arrived at the library earlier than usual. She hadn't slept well. The image of the red scarf man standing near her house haunted her thoughts. She checked the library entrance. Nothing unusual. The street was quiet. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. She unlocked the front door, stepped inside, and walked straight to her desk. She opened the drawer and pulled out the doll, still wrapped in cloth, along with the note and the drawing. She stared at the child's handwriting again. "He is not Papa." What did that mean? Was Alina kidnapped? Was she taken by someone after her mother died? And the man in the red scarf, why? Was he watching her? She needed help. She opened her phone and called an old friend, Adil, who worked as a police assistant. He wasn't a high officer, but he was smart and trustworthy. When he picked up, she explained everything quickly but carefully. Adil listened quietly. "You think the girl is missing?" he asked. "Yes, and I think someone is trying to keep her hidden." "Do you have anything that proves this?" "Just a doll, a note, a drawing, and a man who's following me." Adil sighed. "Okay, send me photos. I'll check if there's a missing person report matching this girl or her mother." Mrs. Noor sent the pictures immediately. Then she sat back and tried to breathe. She glanced at the security screen. Something caught her attention, a small smudge on the window near the children's section. She walked over and examined it. It was a handprinting and faint. Maybe a child's hand pressed against the glass. Recently it looked fresh. She looked outside again. Nothing. But deep in her heart, she felt like someone had been watching the library at night. She walked back to the reading corner, where Alina had left the doll. She sat on the same red cushion, scanning every inch of the bookshelf beside her. One of the lower shelves had a tiny space behind it. She reached in and pulled out a folded napkin. Her hands shook slightly. She opened it slowly. It was another message. This one in smaller letters. Library is safe, but not for long. He watches me always. If I disappear, it means he found out. There was no name, but it had to be Alina. Mrs. Noor clutched the napkin and closed her eyes. What are you trying to tell me, dear child? She whispered. Her phone buzzed. It was Adil. I searched the missing persons list, he said. No official report on an Alina or Ruxana are, but there is a closed case about a woman named Ruxana who died after falling down the stairs. No one questioned it. It was marked as an accident. When, 7 months ago, same building you visited, Rose Street, apartment 16, and the girl. No mention of a child in the report. Mrs. Noor's blood ran cold. She remembered the tea stall man's words. The ambulance, the empty apartment, the child, was never listed, like she didn't exist, she said slowly. Adil's voice was serious. Someone erased her, maybe whoever took her. The man in the red scarf, possibly. Can you find anything else? I'll try, but be careful, Noor. If someone erased a child's existence, they won't stop eyes. She ended the call and sat still. Her eyes fell on the doll. She picked it up and held it close. You trusted me, Alina. I won't let you disappear. That afternoon, a woman came into the library holding a child's hand. The child had 2 braids, just like Alina. Mrs. Noor's heart raced. But as the girl turned, she realized it wasn't her. The same age, but different eyes. Her hope dropped, but she smiled politely and helped them find books. After they left, she returned to the front desk. Then something happened. A book had fallen from the shelf in the children's section. No one had touched it. She walked over and picked it up. Little Lost Things. The title struck her. Was it a message? She flipped through the pages. Nothing inside. But on the inside back cover, someone had drawn a small shape in pencil. A house, a big tree, and a cross next to it. A mark. It looked like a place, a location. She ran back to her desk, pulled out the drawing Alina had left, and compared them. The same house, the same tree, and the same cross. But this one had something new, a number written in small pencil digits. Number 174, an address, a room number. She wasn't sure. She called Adil again. Adil, I found something else. A number, 174, next to a sketch of a house and tree. Do you think it's an address? He replied, possibly. Send it to me. She sent the photo. He replied minutes later. There's an old shelter near Hillview Road, building number 174. Used to be for orphaned kids. It's shut now. Can you go there? Give me an hour. She waited. Time moved slowly. Every sound felt louder than usual. At exactly 1 hour, her phone rang. Adil, his voice was excited. I found something. The shelter was closed 3 months ago, but someone still goes there. A neighbor said they saw a man bringing a little girl there sometimes. Did they describe the man? Yes. Medium height, old coat, and a red scarf. Her heart dropped. It's him. Yes, Adil said. But there's more. The girl is always silent, never speaks, never leaves the building. That's Alina, Mrs. Noor whispered. I need to see her. Can you take me there? Tomorrow morning? We'll go together. She agreed and ended the call. She looked at the doll again, now sitting on her desk like it was guarding every secret. She touched its little hand and whispered, just wait one more day, Alina, we're coming. But outside, someone stood in the alley beside the library, watching. In his coat pocket was a phone. On its screen was a photo of Mrs. Noor and, beside it, one word typed carefully, interfering. Early the next morning, Mrs. Noor stood outside her gate waiting for Adil. The sky was still dim. The roads were quiet. She held her bag close, the doll hidden safely inside. When Adil's car arrived, she got in silently. They drove through empty streets, heading toward the old shelter on Hillview Road. The building appeared after 20 minutes. It stood between 2 empty plots, its paint peeling, windows broken, and gate half open. Adil parked at a distance. We go slow, he said. If she's in there, we don't want to scare her. And if he's there too, we have to be careful. They entered quietly. The hallway smelled of dust and old wood. The walls were covered with faded drawings and crayon marks, memories of children who once lived there. Adil led the way. They heard nothing, just their own footsteps. Then, from one of the rooms, came a soft sound, a hum, a child's hum. Mrs. Noor's heart jumped. She moved faster, then stopped at the doorway. Inside, on the floor near a broken window, sat a little girl with 2 braids. She held a torn book and rocked gently. Her eyes were dull, her face thin. The same face from the library's camera. Alina, Mrs. Noor whispered. The girl looked up sharply. Fear filled her eyes. She backed away, pressing herself into the corner. It's okay, Mrs. Noor said softly. I'm not here to hurt you. Adil stepped back to give them space. The girl didn't speak. She stared at the woman, breathing quickly. Mrs. Noor slowly opened her bag and pulled out the doll. She placed it gently on the floor. "You left her for me," she said. "I found her. She brought me to you." The girl's lips trembled, her eyes welled with tears. Slowly she crawled forward, picked up the doll, and hugged it tightly. Still no words, just tears. Adil stepped in. "We need to get her out of here. What about the man? No sign of him yet. We might be lucky." Suddenly a noise came from the back door. Heavy steps, they froze. Then the door burst open. The man in the red scarf appeared. Wild eyes, messy beard. He stared at the scene in front of him. "What are you doing here?" he shouted. Alina screamed and ran to Mrs. Noor, hiding behind her. The man stepped forward, fists clenched. "She's mine. She's my daughter." "No, she's not," Adil said, stepping between them. "We know who you are. You're not her father," the man growled. "She has no one else. I took care of her when no one did." "You stole her," Mrs. Noor said, holding Alina close. "After her mother died, you kept her hidden." The man's face twisted in anger. He lunged forward, but Adil blocked him, grabbing his arms. A struggle followed, quick and rough. Adil was stronger. He pushed the man to the ground and handcuffed him. "You're not going anywhere," Adil said. The man shouted, cursed, but it was over. Police arrived minutes later. Adil had called for backup earlier. They took the man away. Alina watched in silence, clutching her doll. Her eyes followed him until he disappeared. Then she turned to Mrs. Noor. For the first time, she spoke. Just one word. "Mama." Mrs. Noor's eyes filled with tears. "No, sweetie, I'm not your mama, but I'm here now." The girl leaned into her. For the first time, she let herself be held. That evening, social workers arrived. A doctor examined Alina. She was weak but unharmed. She hadn't spoken to anyone in weeks. She didn't trust easily, but she kept holding Mrs. Noor's hand, and she never let go of the doll. Mrs. Noor sat with her in the waiting room. "You don't have to be scared anymore," she said. "That man can't hurt you now." Alina looked up. He said, "If I talk, I'll disappear too. Like Mama." "Your mama was brave," Mrs. Noor said. "She tried to protect you, and now you're safe because you were brave too." The next day, Adil brought updates. "That man, his name is Rafiq. He was your mother's stepbrother. After she died, he took Alina without any legal guardianship. That's why there were no records. He lied to the neighbors, told them he was the father. He moved her from place to place so no one would find her." "What happens to him now?" Mrs. Noor asked. "He'll be charged. Kidnapping, false identity, child endangerment." It had been a month since Alina moved into Mrs. Noor's small but cozy home. The library had become her second home, filled with books, warm lights, and gentle people who smiled when they saw her. Every morning she helped stack books and dust. Shelves, her laughter slowly returned, soft and shy at first, then louder with each passing day. But though the outside world looked calm, something still rested quietly in the corners of her mind. One evening, as Mrs. Noor made tea, Alina sat at the kitchen table with her doll. She stared at it for a long time, then looked up. "There was something else inside," she whispered. Mrs. Noor turned. "Inside the doll?" Alina nodded. "I put it in a secret place. I didn't tell before." She handed the doll to Mrs. Noor and pointed to the foot. Mrs. Noor gently pressed around the stitching. It was subtle, almost invisible, but she felt it, a tiny hard edge hidden deep in the cloth. Carefully, with a thread cutter, she opened the seam. Inside was a small, folded piece of paper wrapped in plastic. Mrs. Noor opened it slowly. It was a part of a page from a diary. The handwriting was neat, clearly an adult's. Alina watched silently as she read. "If anything happens to me, please protect Alina. He is not safe. His name is Rafiq. He was never kind. I tried to leave once, but he found us. If you're reading this, I didn't make it. Please don't let him find her." The note was signed Ruxana. Mrs. Noor froze. Her hand tightened around the paper. So it was true. Ruxana knew she might die. She had written this, hidden it inside the doll, and made her daughter carry it just in case. "Where did she write this?" Mrs. Noor asked softly. "In her blue notebook," Alina replied. "She said it was for her thoughts. She always wrote when she was scared. Do you remember where the notebook is?" "He took it," she whispered. "When he got angry, he threw it under the bed. I never saw it again." Mrs. Noor called Adil that night and told him about the note. "We need to find that notebook," she said. "It could prove everything." "We already searched the apartment," he said, "but maybe not carefully enough." The next morning, Adil went back to Rose Street with another officer. The old apartment was sealed, but they reopened it. The place was dusty and dark, abandoned for months. Adil moved the broken bed frame and lifted the wooden base. Tucked inside the lining was a thick blue notebook. He opened it. The first page had Alina's name drawn in flowers. The next pages were filled with Roxana's handwriting. Thoughts, fears, plans, warnings. One page had a sketch of a woman with a bruised face and a child hiding behind her. He said, "If I tell anyone, he'll take Alina far away, where no one can find her." Another page read, "I'm trying to save enough money to escape. Just one more month." The last page ended abruptly. "Tomorrow I will go to the library with Alina. She loves it there. Maybe it will be our last visit. Maybe," and then it stopped. Adil called Mrs. Noor. We found it, he said. It's all there. Enough to charge him again. Maybe for more than just kidnapping. Good, she said. Let her mother's voice be heard. That night, Alina held the notebook for the first time. She looked through it slowly, stopping on pages where her mother had drawn little hearts and stars. Her eyes welled up. She wrote about me, she whispered. She never stopped thinking of me. She loved you very much, Mrs. Noor said, and she tried to protect you with everything she had. I want to speak in court, Alina said suddenly. Mrs. Noor blinked. What? When the judge asks. I want to tell them what he did. I remember. I was scared before, but now I'm not. Are you sure? Yes. Adil arranged for a child counselor to meet Alina. First, she spoke softly, but clearly. She remembered how Rafiq yelled, how he locked her inside, how he took her mother's phone and said no one would care. The counselor nodded and said she was ready. On the day of the hearing, Mrs. Noor and Alina sat in the waiting room outside the courtroom. Alina wore a simple yellow dress. She held the doll tightly. Her feet dangled from the bench, but her eyes looked steady. Adil walked in and knelt beside her. You're very brave, he said. Just speak from your heart. Alina nodded. Inside the courtroom, Rafiq looked smaller than before, tired, unshaven, angry. But when Alina entered, he froze. She walked past him and sat in the witness chair. The judge asked her name. Alina, she said. 7 years old. Do you know why you're here? Yes, because he took me. Do you remember what happened? Alina nodded. She spoke slowly, about the day her mother fell, about how Rafiq told her not to cry, about how he said it was her fault, about the nights she slept alone in cold rooms. He said if I ever told anyone, no one would believe me. But she believed me, Alina said, pointing to Mrs. Noor. She found my doll and my mama's note. The courtroom was silent. The judge leaned forward. You're a very strong girl, he said, and your mother was very brave. Later, that afternoon, the judge made the decision. Rafiq would remain in prison. His crimes were serious, and Alina would remain in protective custody with Mrs. Noor as her legal guardian. When they stepped out of the courtroom, Alina held Mrs. Noor's hand tight. We did it, she whispered. Yes, Mrs. Noor said, her voice shaking with emotion. We did. That night, they placed the blue notebook beside the doll on a small shelf in Alina's room. This is Mama's shelf, Alina said, so she never feels far. Mrs. Noor kissed her forehead. She's right here, she said, in every page, in every memory, and in your heart. Alina smiled for the first time in a long while. She turned off the light, lay in bed, and whispered into the dark. Thank you for saving me, Mama, and thank you for sending her. The days after the hearing brought a quiet kind of peace to Mrs. Noor's house. Alina began to smile more often. She would wake up early, help prepare breakfast, and leave small notes for Mrs. Noor on the table. The library had turned into a warm corner of safety for her, and each book she picked opened a new door into a world that didn't hurt. But one evening, as rain pattered against the windows and Alina was coloring on the floor, she paused. Her crayon stopped mid-stroke. She looked up and said, there was another man. Mrs. Noor turned from the kitchen. Another man. Alina nodded slowly. He came to the house once. Mama didn't let him inside. They argued. He gave her something, then he left. Do you remember what he looked like? He had a walking stick and a black hat. Mrs. Noor sat beside her. Did he say anything? Mama said his name was Shabir. I think he gave her a letter. This was new. Another piece of a puzzle she thought was complete. Mrs. Noor gently asked, did you ever see the letter? No, but Mama hid it in her blue purse. The purse hadn't been found during the search of the apartment. Maybe it was taken by Rafiq, or lost. Or maybe it was still somewhere. She called Adil again. There might be a letter given to Rukhsana by a man named Shabir. Alina remembers it. Adil said he'd check. 2 days later, he called back. I found something. A man named Shabir was listed as Rukhsana's old landlord. He passed away a few months ago, but I found his son. He remembers his father giving Rukhsana a sealed envelope before she left. Do they still have it? No, but he remembers what it said. His father had read the letter before handing it over. Why would he read it? Because Rukhsana had asked for help. She feared for her life. The letter was for a lawyer, someone who could help her fight for custody of Alina if anything happened. It included details about Rafiq's abuse, so she tried to get legal help too, yes, but the lawyer never received the letter and never made it because she never had the chance. Exactly. Mrs. Noor sat quietly after the call. The picture of Rukhsana was becoming clearer. A mother trying everything to protect her daughter, hiding notes, writing warnings, reaching out for help, leaving a trail for anyone to find. And somehow, that someone had become her. That night, as she tucked Alina into bed, the girl asked softly, do you think Mama knew you would find me? Mrs. Noor smiled. I think your mama believed the right person would come, and she trusted the world enough to leave her hope in a doll. Alina hugged her doll close and drifted to sleep. The next day at the library, something unusual happened. A woman in her 40s walked in, holding a file. She looked around, then approached Mrs. Noor. Are you the one who helped the girl from the news? She asked. Yes. Her name is Alina. I think I knew her mother. Years ago we worked At the same factory, Mrs. Noor invited her to sit. The woman introduced herself as Sabira. She explained that Ruxana and she had been close for a time. She was quiet, but kind. She always talked about her daughter, said she was her whole world. Mrs. Noor listened carefully. Did you ever meet Rafiq? Sabira nodded, face darkening. He used to come by, shouting outside the gate. Once he followed her home. That's when she stopped coming to work. We lost touch. She opened the file and handed over a picture. It showed Ruxana smiling and holding a baby Alina. She gave me this before she left. Said if anything happened, I should keep it safe. Mrs. Noor held the photo gently. Would you be willing to share this with the court? It could help keep her memory alive legally. Yes. Anything for her. That photo, combined with the diary, the note, and Alina's own words, was forming a full circle. A complete story, built piece by piece. Days passed, papers were filed. The court accepted all the documents as proof of Ruxana's fear and Rafiq's lies. The lawyer handling Alina's adoption smiled as she told them. A week passed after the strange photo arrived. Mrs. Noor kept it in her drawer, beside the diary and the other letters. She didn't know who had sent it or why, but the message stayed with her. You were never alone. It echoed in her mind. Every time she looked at Alina, now adjusting to her new life with quiet strength. But peace, it seemed, never stayed for long. One evening, as the library was about to close, a boy around 12 entered. His clothes were dusty, his eyes sharp. He walked straight to the desk and looked at Mrs. Noor. You're the woman from the news, he said. The one with the little girl. Mrs. Noor nodded slowly. Do you need help with something? He leaned forward. I know who took the picture you got. Her heart jumped. What do you mean? The photo of the woman and the girl. It was taken by my uncle. He used to work with Rafiq. She glanced around, making sure Alina was in the back room. Why are you telling me this? Because my uncle's gone. He ran away last month. He told me before he left, if anything happens, go to the librarian. She's the only one who'll listen. What's your name? Faraz? And what do you know, Faraz? He looked around nervously. There was a plan. Rafiq was going to take the girl out of the city. He paid my uncle to drive them, but something went wrong. The woman her mother found out and tried to escape. That's when she got hurt. Are you saying her death wasn't an accident? It was never an accident? My uncle said Rafiq pushed her. She fell, hit her head. Mrs. Noor froze. It was the truth she had feared, but couldn't prove. Where's your uncle now? I don't know, but before he left, he gave me something. He said if the police ever asked, or if you ever need proof, give them this. Faraz reached into his bag and pulled out a small old phone. It's locked, he said, but the password is your name. She typed Nur on the keypad. It unlocked. Her hands trembled as she opened the message folder. There were 3 voice recordings. She played the first. Rafiq's voice echoed. If she talks, we're finished. She doesn't know how lucky she is that I didn't finish the job that night. The second one was shorter. Tomorrow, I take the girl. You get the car ready. No delays. The third recording was from Faraz's uncle, recorded alone. If anything happens to me, this phone has the truth. I can't carry this anymore. Mrs. Noor looked up. Faraz, you did the right thing. This is important. He nodded. I just want to be left alone now. I don't want to get hurt. You won't, she promised. I'll take care of this. That night, she sent the recordings to Adil. He called back instantly. This changes everything. These are criminal confessions. We can reopen the case around Ruxana's death. Do it, she said. She deserves justice. I'll also inform the Child Protection Board. This secures Alina's future even more. Thank you, Adil. She ended the call and walked to Alina's room. The little girl was sitting near the window, her doll in her lap. Who was that boy? She asked. Just someone trying to be brave. Mrs. Noor said, like you. Did he know Mama? Not directly, but he helped us learn the truth about what happened to her. Alina looked down. I already knew I saw it. Saw what? That night I heard the fight. I heard Mama fall. I stayed in the closet. I didn't come out until morning. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't cry. I thought maybe if I stayed quiet, it wouldn't be real. Mrs. Noor sat beside her. You were just a child, Alina. You didn't do anything wrong? I miss her, she said, her voice small. Me too, Mrs. Noor whispered. The next few days moved fast. The phone was handed to the police. An investigation was reopened. Rafiq's charges were expanded. He would never be free again. And with the full truth in hand, Mrs. Noor's guardianship over Alina became permanent. No more paperwork. No more court visits. Just a signature and a new beginning. One evening, Adil visited the library with a sealed envelope. From the judge, he said. Mrs. Noor opened it. Inside was a certificate declaring her as Alina's official guardian. Legal, complete, final. Alina peeked over her shoulder. Does that mean I can stay forever? Yes, Mrs. Noor smiled. Forever. They hung the certificate on the wall next to the children's reading corner. Below it, they placed a small frame with Ruxana's picture, a quiet tribute. Weeks passed. Alina grew stronger, happier, her reading improved. She made new friends, and slowly, she stopped checking over her shoulder. One day, she brought a notebook to the library and said, I want to write stories now. Like Mama did. What kind of stories? Mrs. Noor asked. About girls who leave messages and dolls, she said with a smile. And the people who find them. That evening, the library stayed open late. Just for the two of them. They sat at the corner table, Alina writing, Mrs. Noor reading. Outside, the city moved on. But inside the library, a story that began in silence had found its voice, a story of a forgotten doll, a hidden cry for help, and a girl who was never really alone. It was a bright Sunday morning when the library opened its doors to a small crowd. Colorful balloons swayed at the entrance, and a hand-painted sign hung above Children's Story Day, featuring a very special author. Inside, the room was filled with laughter, soft music, and rows of neatly arranged chairs. At the front sat a girl in a yellow dress, her hair in neat braids, a gentle smile on her face. Alina, she sat beside Mrs. Noor, holding her notebook tightly, the same one where she had started writing weeks ago. It was her turn to speak, to share the story she had written, a story not just made of imagination, but of truth, pain, and strength. The audience was a mix of parents, children, library members, and a few new visitors who had read about her story in the local newspaper. Adil stood quietly in the back, his arms crossed. Proud. As the room settled, Alina stood, clutching the doll in one hand and her notebook in the other. Her voice was soft at first. This is the story of a little girl and her doll. The doll had a secret, and the girl had a wish. The girl wanted to be found, and the doll wanted to help. She read slowly, her eyes moving from the paper to the faces in the crowd. One day, the girl left her doll in a place full of books. She hoped someone kind would find it. Someone brave, and someone did. As she continued, people listened. Closely, the children sat wide-eyed and the adults grew still. The story mirrored her own journey leaving the doll in the library. The note, the drawing, the fear, and finally, the rescue. But Alina had changed a few things. In her story, the mother lived. In her story, the bad man was scared away by the magic inside the books. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment, then filled with applause. Mrs. Noor wiped a tear from her eye. Alina stepped back to her seat, cheeks flushed, heart full. Later, as guests mingled and books were shared, a little girl approached Alina. Was that a real story? She asked. Alina smiled. Parts of it. Were you scared? The girl whispered yes, Alina said. But someone found me, and now I'm safe. That night, when the library was quiet again and the balloons had stopped swaying, Mrs. Noor locked the door and turned to Alina. You were amazing today. I was nervous, she admitted. But when I started reading, it felt like Mama was listening. I think she was, Mrs. Noor said softly. She'd be proud. They walked home slowly. The stars were out. Alina looked up. Do you think Mama knew this would happen? She didn't know everything, Mrs. Noor replied, but she had hope. She believed someone would care. At home, they placed the doll back on the shelf, beside the framed photo and the diary. It had become a small altar of memory, not a place of sadness, but of strength. Weeks passed. Alina settled more into her new life. School started. She made friends. Her teacher said she was quiet but kind, always helping others. Mrs. Noor joined a local book club and began writing too. The story of Alina and her mother had reached beyond their small town. A journalist requested to interview them, but Alina refused. The story already found the people who needed it, she said. One morning, as Mrs. Noor prepared breakfast, she found a letter in the mailbox. There was no stamp, no address, just one word on the front. Thanks. Inside was a note written in rough handwriting. I was part of what happened. I didn't stop it. I was scared. But I followed the story, and I saw the truth. You did what none of us had the courage to do. You listened. You searched. You fought. Thank you. The girl is safe because of you. There was no signature, just an old bus ticket tucked inside. It was dated from the same day Rafiq had tried to flee the city with Alina, another silent witness. Another heart heavy with guilt, finding peace. Through truth. Mrs. Noor folded the letter and placed it inside the diary, with all the other pieces. The story had touched many lives, some close, some far, and some who would never say a word aloud. That night, as they sat near the window with mugs of warm milk, Alina asked, Do you think bad people ever feel sorry? Maybe, Mrs. Noor said. Sometimes guilt speaks softly, sometimes it stays silent forever. But if even one of them feels regret, maybe that means something. I want to help people when I grow up, Alina said. Like you did for me. You already are, she replied. With every word you write, every story you share, you're helping someone find light. Outside, the night was calm. No more shadows, no more men in red scarves. Just a girl, her guardian, and the stories they now shared together. Years later, the library added a new section, Voices of the Brave. It held books by children, for children,